Senator from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you. This is really a stellar panel, if I could be so graceless. General Shaw, you're former Deputy Commander of Spacecom, and you know better than most the threat that China poses to U.S. national security, our interests in space especially. China's capabilities in this domain are accelerating rapidly, the result of what you noted in your testimony, complete fusion of civil, commercial, and national security expertise. What is your assessment of the threat from China over the next 4 to 5 years, especially in light of their, as we just heard, the cozying up of Russia to China?
Thanks, Senator. First, let me, just from a purely military perspective, what we have seen China do over basically the last couple decades is look at what we've done in space for our warfighters. And I'm fond of saying that our joint warfighters today rely more on space than they did yesterday, and they will rely more on it tomorrow than they did today. That is a curve that continues to move upward. China has observed that. That's exactly why they have developed capabilities to deprive us of our space assets and why they have built and deployed space weapons. But they've also built their own space capabilities mirroring ours to enable their warfighting too. And so this has been a progression, an emulation, and a surge. And I recommended the committee, if they aren't regularly getting briefings from the U.S. Space Force S2 on China's capabilities, that it might be helpful to get that classified briefing on what they're doing from a military perspective.
We're getting that. It is truly alarming. Now, I'm sure as you saw yesterday, the administration announced its intention to relocate U.S. Space Command, which is fully operational now in Colorado, to Alabama, citing political factors such as mail-in voting, some other things. The DoD Inspector General said in a report earlier this year that it will take 3 to 4 years for the same mission-critical systems to be established in Alabama that our warfighters rely on every day in Colorado. Given the threat picture you just shared, what's your assessment of the impact to readiness? Right, we're full operational capability right now. To readiness that this delay would have or could have during such a critical geopolitical window?
I would just say I know Troy Mink pretty well. He's the Secretary of the Air Force, and he was probably very closely involved in the decision, and that I've known him to be a good thinker on those topics, and he probably made a good recommendation to the President.
We'll see. Switching to space debris, Mr. Bridenstine, let me ask you, obviously you know today that we've got over 1 million space debris objects over 1 centimeter, most of them traveling hundreds of thousands of miles per hour, can do severe damage to aircraft, satellites, at that speed, almost anything. The space station's had to conduct 27 debris avoidance maneuvers since 1999. Astronauts had to take emergency shelter as recently as June of 24 last year. Do you believe it's a national security imperative that the United States develops and demonstrates technologies that can remediate space debris?
Remediation that's really hard. I think it's a capability that in some cases makes sense, in other cases maybe not. You mentioned items that are 1 centimeter and bigger. When you're talking about objects that are 1 centimeter and bigger, the cost of going up to space to remediate or bring down something like that it's extraordinarily expensive for the return that you get. If we can see it and we can track it, remediation probably is not the right approach. But the alternative is if you can't see it and you can't track it, you wouldn't know that you need to remediate it. So it is a double-edged sword here. I would tell you the cost is really expensive. I would say what we've got to do is instead of remediate, we've got to mitigate. We've got to make sure we're not putting more debris up there.
That too, I agree with that.
And then I also think we've got to be able to have space situational awareness, space domain awareness, and we've got to be able to maneuver. I think it's critically important that we increase our ability to maneuver. And I will also say that here's the challenge that we face. We're putting so many satellites into the same orbits. We're talking about tens of thousands of satellites going into one orbit from one company in one country. Well, you start adding another company that wants to do it, another company that wants to do it, and another company that wants to do it, and then you start talking about, well, Europe wants to have their own LEO, low Earth orbit mega constellation, and China wants to have its own low Earth orbit mega constellation, and each of them have numerous projects that are, there is no organizational system around it that will prevent us from getting to what eventually is the Kessler syndrome.
Right. No, I got that.
Yep.
Mr. Geller, I had a question for you as well, but I will put that off into the written since I'm out of time. But I do think that some of the stuff like the MAVEN mission out of the University of Colorado Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, collecting essential data about atmosphere on Mars and really getting into that deep research. There are a lot of things that we need to discuss about that. I'll put that off till into the written.
Let me just say, Senator Redwire is happy to be in Longmont and Littleton, Colorado.
Thank you.